ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिमाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति. So this is a verse 64. Now Arjuna wanted to know who is a Sthitaprajñah, means person who has received self-knowledge and assimilated self-knowledge. So, such a person is called Sthitaprajñah, and Bhagavan divides this topic into two portions. Well, one is the natural behavior, a spontaneous expression of a Sthitaprajñah, and so how will he conduct himself in day-to-day life. And the second part is how can a person become a Sthitaprajñah. Sthitaprajñah, if you put in Sanskritam, two topics are there. One is Sthitaprajña Lakshanam. Second is Sthitaprajña Sadhana. So, Sthitaprajña Lakshanam, where we have already talked about it, in which Bhagavan pointed out that his Sthitaprajña is happy with himself, Atmani eva Atmana Tushtaha, etc. And so he does not depend upon any external condition for happiness. And he pointed out that he has got equanimity in all situations. He is free from attachment, fear, anger, etc. etc. Vitaraga bhaya krodha sthitadhir muni ruchyate. So all these are the natural traits of a Sthitaprajña. Then that was pointed out in this section, which is, we call it as a Sthitaprajña section. And then Krishna has now changed the topic to Sthitaprajña Sadhana. How to become Sthitaprajña. And to become Sthitaprajña, first a person has to become Prajña. So, Sthitaprajña has to become first Prajña. So first he has to gain the knowledge. Then there is a question of assimilating the knowledge. And so, receiving the knowledge, gaining the knowledge, doubtless knowledge of course, and then definitely that is the person who receives it that way. Well, and that is sadhanam, we know, shravana, mananam, etc. But once he receives this knowledge well, then we call him prajna. Then when he assimilates the knowledge, we call sthita prajna. So how to become prajna? Of course, Bhagavan is not discussing here. And then, well, you have to listen and you will do mananam, etc. That is not here actually. But we can supply that prajna means when the one who has received the knowledge, and self-knowledge can be received only by two sadhanams. First, you have to listen to the scriptures with a competent acharya, etc., which is known as Vedanta Shravanam. And without Vedanta Shravanam, without this Gita or Upanishad Shravanam, there is no question of receiving the knowledge. And well, it is not enough that one receives the knowledge, he has to eliminate all the doubts which are possible. And because wherever there is a question of knowledge, well, there can always be a doubt. Because intellect has to absorb that knowledge. And intellect will not absorb knowledge without raising the doubts. In any kind of a knowledge, some or other doubt will be there. And then may not, while receiving knowledge, you may not have that doubt. It looks like, you feel like that my intellect is, my buddhi is receiving the knowledge without doubt. But it's not so. After some time, a doubt may rise. So this kind of things are there. And therefore, it's a natural trait on the part of intellect to raise the doubts, and with regard to any topic, with regard to any study, including even Vedanta, or that is self-knowledge. So, and as long as the doubts are there, knowledge is not a knowledge, because it is doubtful knowledge, because doubts are not resolved. And doubtful knowledge is considered as good as ignorance. Only additional thing is, ignorance means you just don't know. And now doubt whether this thing is there or not, whether it is a snake or rope. Earlier there was a totally rope ignorance. And now a doubt is there, whether it is a snake or rope. It is as good as ignorance. It is as good as ignorance. Because you cannot function. So long as doubt is there, you cannot function. Even if somebody says that it is rope only, but if in your mind the doubt has not resolved, well, you will not behave accordingly. That person may be behaving that he may be going near to that rope. For him it is rope. And so he goes near and tells, see, look, nothing to fear, you come near to that. But this person is not moving from that particular place wherever he is, because in his mind it is a doubt. So a doubtful knowledge is as good as ignorance. So not only one should receive the knowledge, one should remove all the doubts that come in the mind, either by one's own reflection or by raising questions to the teacher, etc. And then, well, sometime teacher raises the questions too, and that's how we can say, here the way Arjuna raises the doubt to Lord Krishna, same way our own students can raise the doubt question to the Acharya, and then doubts can be resolved. And it's because this is a matter of conviction, it's not a matter of belief. Matter of belief means you need not, even if you ask question, Acharya need not reply, because it's a matter of belief. He cannot do anything. He says believe it, or you may not believe it. Like if you raise a doubt regarding Swarga, etc., then what can I say? I said, well, Veda says, and if you want to believe, believe. If you don't want to believe, don't believe. I cannot give you any logical answer in this. And therefore, same way, other things are there in which, it's a matter of belief. Then even if you raise a doubt, and the teacher may not have any answer for that. It's only a question of having a Shraddha, etc. But the self-knowledge basically should be clear. Even the self which is, immediate, but if there are confusions, then confusion has to resolve properly. And then I should be convinced, that I am nothing other than Brahman, etc. Anyway, so this removal of doubt is called mananam. So Shravanam mananam will make me a prajna. Well, prajna means, as I told you, the one who receives the knowledge. It makes me the person who receives the knowledge without doubt. And then, the knowledge, the same person, now, he assimilates the knowledge, the doubtless knowledge he has to assimilate, because that is Doubtless knowledge it is in the buddhi. It is not sufficient because it will remain at the intellectual level, and our life situations are faced by emotional personality predominantly. And so it is the emotional mind that faces the situation, and that is why we say several times that I know that worry is not useful. I have understood the worry will not change the situation. Well, but even though I know I should not worry, but I am not able to avoid the worry. That's how we know. This is how the situation in everyone's life. That means intellectually we have convinced that nothing, there is no question of worry, because there is no question of insecurity at all. There is no question of insecurity at all. Insecurity is just a notion, etc. There is no danger at all. But anyway, so intellect, even though tells everything, explains everything, still the mind does quietly, something else. I mean, it keeps worrying. Intellect tells, yeah, there is no question of worry, but mind keeps on worrying. So transformation in the intellectual personality is not enough. So we require transformation at the level of a emotional personality also. So Shravanam and Mananam, basically it will give you the knowledge, doubtless knowledge, and so that, it is assimilated in the intellect. But then emotional personality, where it should be assimilated, it has not assimilated. So transformation at the intellectual level brings a cognitive change. And that is required, of course. But it is not enough that, this much change is not enough. Knowledge must be converted into emotional strength. And so whatever be the situation that come, I can emotionally remain a balanced person. That's what this section is talking about. So a prajna has to become a sthita prajna. That is what the question is. So attachment is an emotional problem. And that is why even you must be seeing this. What Bhagavan is telling, you will find that highly intellectual people have very fragile emotionally, very, very fragile. Before few years, one very senior professor in IIM, Indian Institute of Management, he committed suicide. We feel such an intellectual, he very senior professor. Almost he was equivalent to the director in the IIM. It is not any ordinary thing. And so highly intellectual person, but very fragile because he committed suicide. I know certain instances in the students also. IIM students, very brilliant students. They, some issue, some love affair, something, even other things also. It may some fragile issue, some very petty issue, but he is so fragile emotionally, he commits suicide. So intellectually you may bring a change by Shravana Mananam of this, through the listening of Upanishads, but emotionally it should percolate. That's what we mean by Sthita Prajna. Emotional, it's an assimilation at the level of emotional personality. And therefore intellectual people you will find emotionally very fragile. Even depression also comes to them, and jealousy, anxiety, all these are emotional issues. Insecurity, all emotional issues. So even great intellectuals also face this problem, and therefore prajna has to become sthita prajna. So not only intellectual transformation is required through the study, we have to bring the necessary emotional transformation also, which will convert from oneself from prajna to sthita prajna. And how to transform this prajna into sthita prajna is the discussion right now. That is the discussion, and it has started. The discussion has started from verse 58. This is the topic: how to convert our Gita study into emotional strength. Gita study will definitely bring a cognitive change, intellectual. At the level of intellect, I get a change, gaining this jnanam through Shravana Mananam. But how that knowledge can give me emotional strength, that's what we are discussing right now. So it is not enough, that we stop attending the classes which after the intellectual change has occurred. But you begin to know, this is all at the level of intellect. What is body? What is Atma? What is mind? All we have defined, right, in Tattva Bodha and everything. And what is Satyam, what is Mithya, and what is a relation, and everything. who is Jiva, who is Ishvara, what is Jagat. All this information we get, and that brings a change cognitively, because earlier I was not knowing. After listening and even having a mananam, etc., I gained this knowledge, which is now doubtless knowledge, that all the three are one alone, all the three are mithya, and that adhishthanam is satyam, etc. All this knowledge we gain it. But that's not enough. That knowledge ultimately should give me strength. Means I should be able to appreciate really the mithyatva. Not at the intellectual level, but in my vyavahara itself, I should be able to see this mithyatva. And of course, Bhagavan prescribes 3 exercises for this conversion of knowledge into the strength or assimilating knowledge. Bhagavan has given 3 exercises. And the first one is a sensory control, of course, sensory regulation, and we will not call sense mastery, etc., because then mastery means suppression also may come, etc. So let's avoid that word itself. Sensory regulation, we can say. And this 5-fold sense organs, basically, sense regulation means 5-fold sense organs must be under the control. And without that sensory regulation, the whole world can enter into our mind without the permission. So, when when we build a house, we do not want anybody to enter the house. And so, for that, what we do? We put a door, and we close it also. Sometime, in some of the houses, not only a door is there, a security person, watchman, etc., also may be there. Not only door and watchman, also they put on the on the wall itself some kind of a instruction, no admission without permission. So much care we take that if a intruder should not enter to our house. So same way, if local house has got so many gates and so many precautions, then our inner house, we call the mind, which also has actually 5 doors. So through 5 doors, anybody can enter. 5 openings in the form of 5 senses. And therefore, so basically, Bhagavan says you should be able to close the door at the appropriate time, and there must be a board. Door itself, why we have made a door, you know very well. If we make a house and if we don't want anybody to enter, then there should not be a door. Because it's not that somebody enters, you also want to go out. Therefore, door must be there. Therefore, it's a transaction. Somebody can. So only thing is, you don't want an intruder. Any person whom you don't know should not enter. But you definitely welcome the people like me or somebody else. Definitely. So there must be a door. And not only you can welcome people like some guest or some friends, whatever. But at the same time, you also want to go out. So door must be there. So why the senses? Somebody asked me a question, then if the senses has to be controlled, then why the senses are required? Then it's not like that. It's a regulation. Basically, some people should enter, some people should not enter. For that purpose, we have all this. Otherwise, why will you put the instruction? No admission without permission. Why should you say? Even reading this instruction, the guest will definitely come in. And you also welcome it. You don't tell the guest that you should have seen that board. You won't tell. But definitely you wish that the intruder, any person who is foreigner, whom you don't want, basically. Foreigner means whom you don't want. Means unknown to you, should not enter. Or maybe a person who harm you, he should not enter. For that, doors are there, watchman is there, etc. Same thing here. It is same thing. Mind is also a beautiful house, and it has a 5 doors, etc., or windows, whatever you want to call. Ultimate door is better. And so, so Bhagavan says you should be able to close the door at an appropriate time, and there must be a board also. No admission without permission. Any sound should not enter. Sound should enter. Any sound should not enter. A form should enter. Any form should not enter. Any Tom, Dick and Harry, they say, any Tom, Dick and Harry should not enter. Anyway, so I should be able to have a detector before anything enters. And if I am not going to do that, Swami Chinmayanji used to tell one thing. The place your he can give any kind of his imagination was very fertile. I think I gave you that example. I don't remember, but let me tell you now. Swami Chinmayanji used to tell that your mind should not be like a public toilet. That's what he used to tell. All types of people enter and make the things filthy. Same way, all types of rubbish can enter through the sense organs and definitely and make the mind rubbish. And if it is entering, just in the morning, etc., that's also okay. But any time it enters, public toilets are this any time anybody can enter. So same way, data enters into our mind any time, and during night also, then you dwell upon it also. Anyway, so you have seen some picture and then start thinking in the night. You have seen something and you start thinking. Or somebody has told something to you and you have gone to bed and now you are thinking about it. So this is, that's how Swami Chinmayanji used to call it as like this. Anyway, so sense regulation is important. That's all it means. Regulation means with your permission something can enter. And that which is useful to you, which cannot make your house filthy. That's which cannot convert into a toilet kind of a thing. So that's what we have to take care. That's called sense regulation. Then next exercise, Bhagavan prescribed for assimilation of knowledge and to become a sthita prajna from a prajna, which is equally important. That in spite of our sense control, still certain things, may enter our mind. And not that I wanted to hear the conversation, but since your ears you have not plugged, and the ears were open, and even though you do not want certain things to enter in, but it entered. And these things also we have seen. Then what should be done? Bhagavan says, when once it has entered into your mind, into your home, you cannot stop. It has entered. Now how will you stop? Before entering, you would have taken care of. That's called sense regulation. But now certain things have just entered in your mind, into your house. Then definitely you should not give much encouragement to that. Then the person, if somebody has entered into your home, and if you don't encourage, you don't show any kind of a welcome attitude, then it will definitely leave. And it leaves. Things on which has entered into your mind, suppose if you don't dwell upon them. Dwelling upon them is a welcoming the thing. And therefore, if you don't dwell upon them, they will leave. Your mind forgets also. If you dwell upon it and show some kind of a welcome, then that particular thing feels that this is a good home, where I get all kind of, upachara. I get all kind of welcome procedures, and therefore let me stay here. So it becomes a permanent guest in your mind. So definitely, you should control at the level of thought. That's what we have already seen that. So whether we should relive the conversation with somebody or because if it may be rubbish, then you should not relive. What happens is, suppose something happened during day. You had some conversation with somebody and it was not good to again remember. But your mind starts dwelling upon the whole conversation. This Bhagavad Gita lecture we may not remember, but that conversation, everything we remember. What he said and what you said, and then what he did some gesture and then what you said. All this you vividly you can remember. You means not you, please understand what I am telling. This is the way we say. So, I should not replay it again and again. That's all it means. Because it is a very dirty thing. It's a very rubbish thing. Then, and you should not dwell upon it. And therefore, that's way you have to, control. So often arrival of a particular thought is not in my hand, but without my knowledge it happens, but it arises in my mind. It may surprise sometimes. What happens, a thought may arise and it surprises me. If such a thought, how can be in me, who is a student of Bhagavad Gita, etc., or who is a student of self-knowledge, etc. Well, Bhagavan says, doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. People, even without thinking, they say, Swamiji, I am feeling so guilty that a particular thought arises. You cannot help. Thought will occur. But then to dwell upon that thought or not, that is in you. That is in your hand. Because basically I have given you a freedom. And therefore you can change the pattern of thought. And you may fail also, that is not a problem. You may fail and sometimes you are carried away with that thought pattern. You may dwell upon that object. It may also happen. But then you come back and become alert and don't feel guilty. But become alert that this kind of things are occurring in my mind, which surprises me also sometimes. Well, so because thing might have come from the subconscious mind, you know very well all these things. And so subconscious mind had everything. And now we are student. Earlier we were not student, or in past lives we may not have been students, and therefore all kinds of impressions are there. Even a impression of a rubbish things also may be there. Doesn't matter. But you decide whether you should allow that thought pattern to continue or not. That is in your hand. So definitely Bhagavan is telling us, so where we have to have a control, or at what stage I should definitely regulate the thing. That is what Bhagavan is conveying. So use your willpower to nip that thought in the bud itself. I have told you, if you keep on dwelling, then we have already discussed dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. This is called Vishaya Dhyanam. Vishaya Dhyanam means not just seeing the object in your mind. It is not Dhyanam. Dhyanam means basically dwelling upon a same thing again and again. That is called Dhyanam. And that is even our Ishwar Dhyanam also the same thing. Just once you close your eyes and once you see a form of a Lord. That is not Ishwar Dhyanam. Ishwar Dhyanam means dwelling upon Ishvara, form of that Ishvara again and again. Sajatiya vritti pravaha. Pravaha means a flow. Flow of Sajatiya vritti. Sajatiya vritti means a vritti has the same object. Here Ishvara in our case. So a constant flow of all the thoughts in which the object of the thought is Ishvara. That's called Dhyanam. Same way, Vishaya Dhyanam also is the same way. A particular object is there, we keep on dwelling upon, on that object. That's a danger. That's the beginning of the danger. And that's what the whole, we have seen the ladder of a fall. We have seen that. So here you can regulate your thought pattern and use your willpower. Well, choice, freedom is there to nip that thought in the bud itself. And so be alert. That will be there. If you don't be alert, then this thought pattern will not be able to control that later on. It becomes fancy, etc. We have seen that Sangaha Jayate, etc. So this discipline, is called a thought discipline, which is generally called in Sadhana Chatushtayam as a Shamaha. So sense discipline is Damaha and mind discipline is called Shamaha. And these two exercises are extremely important for a student of a Vedanta. So, because we have pursuing knowledge for the sake of enjoying the fruit. So, knowledge itself is a fruit, that's correct. But knowledge, when it is assimilated, it will convert into a fruit. And therefore, definitely, it should percolate into our emotional personality. It should give us emotional strength. With this knowledge, I should not have depression. With this knowledge, I should not have security. With this knowledge, I should not have jealousy. With this knowledge, I should not, become fragile, emotionally fragile. Well, all this is a benefit. And the person who has this benefit is enjoying the freedom. He's enjoying the, he's enjoying the freedom. He's having a happiness, etc. So Bhagavan says, these two disciplines are important. But we have discussed three. For assimilation, we have discussed three. And the third exercise which is very important, and that is dwelling upon the teaching which we have received from the teacher. And it has become a doubtless, of course. But then you should dwell upon the teaching. So mind should not dwell upon the objects mind should dwell upon the teaching. And therefore, if these two disciplines are there, then mind is free, available to you. And then, because it is not dwelling upon the objects of pleasure, etc., sense objects, so it is available to you, then utilize it now. So, dwelling upon the teaching which has been received during Shravanam, and so you have to revise either in the form of reading. See, these are all Nididhyasana. I was talking to you that I will talk about Nididhyasana, but I will just mention what is called Nididhyasana. Either you read the notes, or you read what has gone by. Understand, reading a book is another thing. It is not Nididhyasana. It is a part of Shravanam only. Because you are not listening, you are reading. But what I am saying is, what you have already listened and you have made some notes and that you are referring again, that becomes Nididhyasana. That becomes a Nididhyasana. Or it may be in the form of writing. You can write down the notes. Even while you are listening, if you write down, two things are happening. Shravanam also is going on, and writing down also, it is one kind of a Nididhyasana. Writing note is very, very wonderful. Sometimes it happens that we write down notes, but we may not read again. Because we have written in such a way that we don't like to read. We are not able to read also. What you have written, we ourselves were sometimes not able to read. Anyway, because of handwriting, etc. Or even though other people also may not be able to read our notes, but we ourselves are not sure that even though, whether somebody is able to read or not, but very writing process is dwelling upon the teaching. That's a big advantage. So, while listening, if you are writing down, so you are dwelling upon the teaching, what you are receiving through the ears. And that is how it becomes Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana does not mean close the eyes and sit in the chair, etc. Reading your own notes is basically Nididhyasanam. Writing the notes is Nididhyasanam, and etc. Referring your notes, etc. also is Nididhyasanam. And sharing also is Nididhyasanam. There are various ways. Shastra tells this is Nididhyasanam. And sharing means, but Swamiji, nobody is there. Then make someone victim. And he has come to meet you and talk something else about the stocks and everything. But you make him sit. Give him a hot cup of coffee and tell this thing. This is victimize somebody. At least one person you victimize. That's a success. And for share with that person. Anyway, you in one or other form relive the Shravanam is Nididhyasana. What you have already listened, just relive it, is Nididhyasana. That's how the definition of Nididhyasana is given, and which is very, very important exercise, and that also helps you in assimilation. So we have to spend time either on the same day or before coming to the class. Also, that's quickly, if you refer the portion, not for examination's sake, because no teacher is going to take the exam, but definitely it is reliving the Shravanam. You have already listened, you have some notes, and you are before next class, you refer. So this also helps you in assimilating. And it gradually transforms the mind. People are so anxious, so much anxious. Swamiji, there is no change in my mind. I was the same person before even I came to Vedanta, and after listening to so many classes, I am the same person. Don't think so. Because the samskaras are formed. You have a liking for the knowledge, and you are exposing yourself, and therefore mind is getting impression. It's one kind of an experience. And mind is forming its samskaras. But they are so subtle. And Dehatma Buddhi, etc. is so strong. Therefore, these samskaras, you may not be able to notice it. And therefore, but it gradually brings a transformation in the mind. And therefore, the same students who are complaining that in our personality there is no change, etc. and all that, we have not assimilated knowledge, the knowledge has not benefited us, etc., etc. We cannot, people use another words. We are not able to put into practice. Forget about that practice, etc. Question of assimilation of knowledge is there, but a practice, etc., it takes you to another place. I mean, knowledge is knowledge. We don't require any other thing. No practice is required. Question of assimilation of knowledge is there, and we are discussing the means of how we can assimilate. But those people only, the students, they say, Swamiji, definitely we should tell. Whether I am Sthitaprajna or not, I cannot tell. Whether I am, whether I have assimilated or not, I cannot tell. But one thing is there. Earlier I was worrying so much for days together. Earlier I was getting angry at everything so much. But now at least I don't get angry on certain occasions. I don't worry for days together. I worry for few hours or for 1 or 2 days. But then even though big incident, now I don't worry. So that is the advantage. So this is assimilation. So but people want the whole benefit. They want to become a wise person very next moment. Because everyone has that kind of anxiety. Because we feel envy of that person, Nothing affects that person. And therefore, and no fear, no anxiety, no depression, no this, no that, and enjoying all the time. And then we feel, and he has a leisure of enjoying sense objects. That is where we feel so much envy. When we enjoy the sense objects, definitely we become bound to that, and new impressions are arising, new likes and dislikes, arises. And then we feel we are bound, and then we have a craving, and then all problems. And he enjoys all the sense objects, and yet he is free. That is what we want also. So we want to enjoy everything, and at the same time we want to have a freedom also. And then definitely we become envious too. So we feel that we also should become a wise person, and one class of Bhagavad Gita is enough. Next day I should be wise person. That is not going to happen, sir. And therefore, have a patience. That's how Bhagavan uses the word for a mumukshu. Bhagavan uses one word, dhiraha. And dhiraha means basically one who has a great patience. And it takes time to change the entire personality. From one corner to the other corner, it's like that. Or from one point to the other point. It is just 180-degree change. So it takes time. So anyway, so the third exercise is Nididhyasanam, dwelling upon the teaching. And even though all the 3 exercises are there, in this context right now, what we are discussing, and Bhagavan emphasizes sense control, that you know very well, that after talking all the 3 disciplines, Bhagavan has again come back to the sense control, sense regulation. And that is what we are seeing in these verses. And in the last shloka, that is verse 64, we saw that Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavasher vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. So when you allow the sense organ to, of course, we have seen that, and therefore I am just quickly going through. So when you allow the sense organ to move in the world, then let it, be like a cautious driver. You should be like a cautious driver. So you may increase the speed of the vehicle, 50 kilometers, miles here, 50 miles per hour and 80 miles per hour and whatever it may be. But there is a difference between a rash driver and a cautious driver. So you know that difference, you should know the difference, and then choose to be a cautious driver. So a rash driver increases the speed and he does not have a control over the vehicle. So he gets into accident. Whereas a cautious driver, he may go faster than even a rash driver, but at any moment he will be able to put the brake or even change the course of the vehicle. So similarly, remember, your body is like the vehicle, your sense organs are like the wheels of the vehicle, and your mind is like the steering. So, and this is an example, given in the Kathopanishad, you know very well. Atmanam rathinam viddhi shariram rathamevatu. This body is like a ratham. So we, instead of a chariot, now in our context, we can say it is a car. And sense organs are hindriyani hayanahu. For the chariot, definitely horses are required. Here for sense organs, wheels are there. For a car, wheels are there. So sense organs are the will, and the body is like a car, and the mind is like the steering. And never lose the control over the mind, that is steering. You don't never lose the control. And so that discipline, of course, never lose the control over the senses, never lose the control over the wills, sense organ, the wills, never lose the control over the body, car. Ultimately through steering, of course. But so this kind of a discussion, we saw this verse, and if a person is able to live such a disciplined life, Bhagavan has called this person as a Vidheyatma. If you remember, Vidheyatma means person whose senses are under his control. And then senses are under control, means mind, of course, definitely will have a control. Such a person Bhagavan has called as a Vidheyatma. Prasadam adhigacchati. Bhagavan says the advantage is what he wants in his life is a prasadam, basically. He wants to have a equanimity, he wants to have a tranquility, he wants to have joy of life, but basically, then definitely he will gain that kind of a joy, because he gains the equanimity of the mind, he is free from violent emotions, and we have seen before also, the frequency of a violent emotion, the reactions, will become lesser and lesser. Then intensity becomes lesser and lesser. And recovery period also will become lesser and lesser. So all the three things become lesser. Frequency of the violent emotion like anger, etc. become less now. And then intensity also of the anger, etc. becomes less. And the recovery period from that anger and etc. and from the greed and from jealousy, etc. that also become less. You can come out of it faster. So this is the advantage. And that then definitely the result is nothing but the equanimity of the mind. Because these are the emotions, negative emotions, where basically they were making the mind very, very, agitated. Making the mind very, it cannot enjoy the peace, etc. Now he is able to enjoy the peace. So this is called prasada, equanimity of the mind. In other words, we can call even samatvam also. Equanimity means a samatvam. So, not that all these emotions are eliminated overnight. Please understand. This kind of because he becomes a role model for us, this wise person. And so we feel that all the time his face is very, very calm and quiet. His eyes are also very calm and quiet. Everything is calm and quiet. He talks also, you will have to go very near. He talks very, very slowly. And his gestures also are very, very, everything is... So that kind of this is also fancy. That arises in our mind. Nothing what we are imagining about that wise person, I am telling you, nothing of that sort will be there. But basically, so even this negative emotion arises also in his mind. But it will be under his control. That's what we say. Frequency will be less now. And our own people are telling, now Swamiji, I don't get angry often. Or I don't, the intensity of the anger. Earlier he was shouting so much that the neighbor, whole street is able to listen what he was when he was shouts, everyone will know. Anyway, so now that intensity also of anger, etc., shouting, etc. has decreased. Recovery period also is faster, he comes out of the anger. So it has not eliminated, negative emotions are not eliminated totally, but he is able to manage his emotions. So Bhagavan is telling, so this is what he is telling. If we are practicing all this, don't think you become totally free from the negative emotion, but they will be under your control, you will be able to manage them. And so, Arjuna, may you practice all the three. So we saw up to this, now we'll see verse 65. Prasade sarva dukkhanam anirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhif paryavatishthate. So Bhagavan has used the word prasadam. Bhagavan said this person who is having that sense control and mind control, etc., regulation, etc., and who is doing Hridayasana, etc., he will gain the prasadam. Prasadam is, we have seen, he gains the tranquility of the mind. So if Bhagavan picks up that word, prasadam, And from there now he goes ahead. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi asya upajayate. When the mind becomes tranquil, prasade sati. So it's a when the mind becomes tranquil, it is called Sati Saptami. Sati Saptami means, when, then usage will be there. When this thing will happen, then this thing will happen, etc. And when the Devadatta was milking the cow, a tiger came, like that. Suppose that kind of a situation. So when and then. So for when and then you can use yada tada. But instead of, if you don't want to use yada tada, drop that and put that phrase into seventh case, and that is called Sati Saptami. Anyway, so prasade, when the prasade is a seventh case, of course. So when the mind is tranquil, hanihi asya upajayate, hanihi, the destruction, sarva dukkhanam hanihi, the destruction of all the miseries, upajayate, takes place. He means verily, indeed, buddhihi, the self-knowledge, asya purushasya, of this, prasanna chetasaha, asya prasanna chetasaha buddhihi. Well, the self-knowledge of this person who is serene-minded, now who is a tranquil-minded, paryavatishthate, becomes, firm, that it becomes a sthita prajna. An ashuhu paryavatishthate, very soon. So, what is the meaning of the whole shloka? In tranquility, the destruction of all miseries takes place, definitely, means indeed, and the self-knowledge of this tranquil mind person or serene-minded person becomes firm soon. That's how it is. Means prajna becomes sthita prajna. So this is how Bhagavan describes here. We will see that some detail in this. So Bhagavan points out, the advantage of enjoying an equanimous mind, prasada. So, we discussed in the last class that he gains samatvam, you can say, prasada means. So, not the regular meaning of prasada we should take. We receive, which we receive from the temple. That's an extended meaning you can take, because there also there is a samatvam, etc. If you remember, when we discussed karma yoga, etc., we have told that whenever a person receives karma phala, definitely he has a equanimity of the mind, looking upon that karma phala as a prasada. So anyway, prasada means samatvam, but it's an extended meaning. Here basically we should take samatvam means the prasada means a balanced mind, poise you can say, tranquility you can say, or you can say even equanimity also. So in this verse, Bhagavan says, prasadaha will produce twofold benefit. Prasade hanihi. What are the twofold benefits? The first benefit is sarva dukkhanam hanihi. Sarva dukkhanam hanihi means destruction of all the miseries, sorrows. And so this tranquility of the mind removes all the sorrows, which means it will bring a happiness, definitely. Whenever your mind is tranquil, it will bring a joy, because definitely all the sorrows are gone. So you will experience the joy, happiness. So the idea is Bhagavan wants to convey that we need not bring happiness from outside world. And according to Vedanta, why we need not bring happiness? Because there is no joy in the outside world. The very first thing is that there is no object which can be called as a source of joy. And therefore, definitely the outside world need not give the happiness, because we ourselves are the source of joy or happiness. So it is Pujya Swamiji also used to give, and other acharyas also used to give an example of that bone, like the bone that is beaten by a dog. So when the dog bites the bone, the bone does not have any kind of a drop of even a blood, but the bone is as dry as bone. If you want to give an illustration for the bone, for the dryness, you have to give an example of bone only. There is no, like, what is the example of Akasha? You want to compare Akasha with something. With what you will compare? It's a similarity, right? Drashtanta means a similarity. With what you will compare? With Akasha only. So this is how it is. Gaganam Gaganakaram, they used to give this kind of an example. Rama Ravanayoho Uddham Rama Ravanayoho Eva, they say. You want to give an example for a war between Rama and Ravana. Oh, it was a so ferocious and terrible fight between these two. Terrible, terrible. Oh, terrible means what kind of a terrible? But then you should say, well, terrible like the fight between Rama and Ravana. A terrible fight between Rama and Ravana. Same example. There is no example, it wants to say. So, same way, dryness of bone is like what? That dryness is like what? That dryness is like bone only. That's how they sometimes say, when anything which is dry, they say it is a bone dry. They say like that. Well, anyway, still, so there is no, drop of a blood, droplet of the blood. Still the dog bites that bone, and bone hurts the very mouth of the, a dog, and blood comes out. And dog uses a funny logic. What is the logic? Before biting the bone, well, there was no blood. After biting the bone, there is a blood. And therefore, bone is the source of blood. That's a dog logic. But Pujya Swami used to call it as a dog logic. Anyway, so Vedanta also, we are not better than the dog actually. When we say a sense of, before experiencing a sense object, there was no happiness. After experiencing the sense object, there is a happiness. Therefore, sense object is a source of blood. No, source of joy. So, well, we conclude that way. But actually, we have seen in the detail. So, for you people, you can arrive within no time that there is no source of joy in the world. So, every object is like basically a bone. So, it doesn't have any droplet of happiness. So, they only are responsible in bringing out the happiness, we can say, become nimitta, which is my own. So, how does the sense object bring out that happiness? Well, what happens, Swamiji? We have discussed, if you remember, in a moment of joy, what happens? You know very well. And suppose you are experiencing a joy after getting desired object. That's what we want to discuss. Other things you know very well as such. Seeing some beautiful bird and blue bird and that, then you become happy. That's another thing that we are not discussing at this moment. But getting a desired object, you become happy. Then definitely you conclude that that object only is giving. Basically what happens is when you get a desired object, your mental agitation, mental disturbance gets suspended timely. And that is called Shanta Vritti. Pujya Swamiji calls it the Shanta Vritti. And when the Shanta Vritti occurs, then definitely your own happiness manifests into that. Anyway, we have discussed it and we will discuss again. So, mental disturbances are blocking our happiness by sense control and by mind control. When the mental disturbances are removed, when the blocks are removed, of course, then our own fullness manifests. And so Bhagavan says, Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi bhavati. That's the first advantage, first benefit. So once the disturbances are gone, well, and then definitely, earlier it has been told prasadam adhigacchati. Prasadam, tranquility of the mind. Shantim prapnoti. Now, again it is going to come. And that shantim apnoti, etc. So, basically, joy does not come from outside, it comes from oneself. When you are, see, this is a very simple thing is, when you are quiet, when you are peaceful, when you are having a tranquil mind, you are enjoying. You are enjoying you are experiencing the joy also. So definitely, whenever it occurs, even without experiencing a desired object, just you get up in the morning and suppose by some reason you are very tranquil. Your mind is tranquil, no agitation. So then you are with yourself. There is no object also with you. Still you are happy. You are, we call the person is in mood now. So the person is happy. That shows that the self is the source of happiness. Only that object becomes a nimitta. But when one doesn't know the nature of oneself, definitely one will superimpose that happiness on the object, like the dog. So that is the first benefit. Prasade. when you get a tranquility, first benefit is dukkhanam, sarva dukkhanam hanihi bhavati. All the hani, all the sorrows, all the miseries go. Then, what is the second benefit? Prasanna chetasaha ki ashu buddhihi paryavatishthate. Prasanna chetasaha, when the mind is calmer, becomes more calm, buddhihi paryavatishthate, self-knowledge becomes well rooted. So that's another advantage. When definitely prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi, when definitely his mind becomes tranquil, he will not have any kind of a sorrow in his mind, and therefore the self-knowledge which he has received through Shravanam and Mananam, he has a doubtless knowledge in his buddhi, he has a cognitive change, he has basically his intellectual personality has already changed, but it has not percolated into emotional personality. Well, now buddhi paryavatishthate, his self-knowledge becomes well rooted. It is becoming stronger and stronger. It is becoming well assimilated, and we know very well assimilated knowledge only will definitely give you benefit. So, like the food that I consume, the food which I consume is not important. The amount of food that I consume is not important. Amount of food that I assimilate only becomes beneficial. Same way here also, because that only gives me nourishment. And whatever quantity I eat, the nourishment will be whatever is going to come is from the assimilation only. And therefore, buddhi means this jnanam, prajna you can say, become paryavatishthate means it gets converted into sthira prajna. Paryavatishthate means it abides, means that knowledge which was there in the intellect because of long years of Shravanam and Mananam, definitely now becomes well assimilated, and he is well rooted. His knowledge becomes well rooted, and that will definitely gives him a benefit. So well rooted means what? It is available in day-to-day life. That's what we can say, to face difficult situation. And when difficulty situations comes, he will not have a depression, he will not have a jealousy, he will not become insecure, he will not have a fear, etc., etc. So we can say all these benefits which we want to see in our day-to-day life, like the person who is the wise person, you can see the benefit in his daily life. I can also see the benefit in daily life. So 3 disciplines. But here Bhagavan is right now again contemplating upon the one particular discipline called sensory regulation, and from there he is giving all ideas. Now let's see the verse 66. Nasti buddhirayuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. Buddhi nasti, knowledge does not arise. For whom? Ayuktasya, for the undisciplined person. Bhavanachana asti. Bhavanachana asti means contemplation also is not possible for this person who is undisciplined. Ayuktasya, and for that undisciplined person, nacha shantihi, there is no peace. Abhavataya, for this person who is not able to do contemplation, for whom the contemplation is not possible, such a person is called abhavayataha. Kutas sukham, then how can there be happiness? Ashantasya kutas sukham, for such a person who does not have a peace in the mind, how can he gain the happiness? So, now few things are told here. First thing is, knowledge does not arise for this undisciplined person. Nasti buddhihi ayuktasya buddhihi nasti. Buddhi means jnana. Ayuktasya, for this undisciplined person who does not have a sensory control, sensory regulation, who does not have a thought discipline. For such a person, how can for this undisciplined person, how can there be a knowledge? Means the knowledge is there in buddhi, but it is not well assimilated, so it is not coming into a day-to-day activity. So it is as good as not there. Then second thing is, ayuktasya bhavana api na asti. contemplation also is not possible for this undisciplined person. And ayukta means undisciplined. And abhavayatah shantihi api nasti. Bhavana means contemplation. Abhavayatah means the person who cannot do contemplation. So for such a person there is no peace. And well, ashantasya kutas sukham. And how can there be happiness for the person who does not have a peace? So in this verse, well, Bhagavan is highlighting the shamaha and damaha exercises, the sensory control and mind control are highlighted here. And he points out that these two disciplines are important at every stage of spiritual sadhana. So we know, of course, that three things are there. Shravanam means listening of the scripture. Well, then that also requires a control of the mind. You see, imagine that you are listening to this talk, and Buddhi has decided that yes, for this 1 hour, well, I want to listen, etc. And I want, instead of spending time here and there, and and other pursuits, well, this Gita Shravanam is very, very beneficial to me, etc. So your judgment, etc. is also good. You have, you are listening, but it is not enough that your mind is at that particular place. Like your mind is right now, maybe in this place, in this Zoom communication, in this virtual class. Let's say it is here. Compared to other pursuits, the mind has come here. But here also, the mind should be more cooperative. And well, it should just be behind the words of a particular teacher or whatever, maybe. Behind that teacher's word only it should remain, not in that particular place. It happens like, it happens to one Swami basically. That Swamiji was not wearing this kind of clothes, he used to have that Angavastra. So, and it happens that during class he used to do like this, like that. And one old lady, of course, was in the class. And after few class, she brought that, that safety pins kind of a thing and gave it to Swamiji. And then Swamiji wondered, why are you giving me? He said, Swamiji, I used to see in a class that you used to do often like this. So you can arrange your Angavastra properly. So I have brought. Means what? His mind was not anywhere else, not in her home, not at any other place. His mind was there in this place. But here in this place also his mind was not behind the teaching. His mind was behind that Angavastra and that arrangement and on the Swami's body, etc. So this, this is just an example. So she has not heard anything. It proves that she has not heard any Gita talks. She has only observed Angavastra. Anyway, so mind should not, mind is required not just as a given place. Mind is required behind the words of a teacher. And therefore, anyway, so basically the mind control, etc., is all required. Anyway, we are going to discuss more in this thing on Monday. We will see that. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.